Welcome to ENH114 African American Lit Online. This is the course orientation video introduction part 1. This is the first of 3 videos that you will watch to complete the course orientation. You will also need to read the syllabus. So let's go ahead and get started. This orientation will cover these 4 major areas: the purpose of the course objectives, the modules, and your time commitment. So let's get started with the purpose of the course. African American literature grew out of the oral tradition of storytelling and spirituals. In this course, you will consider these verbal modes and their impact on the literary production of African American authors from the colonial period to the current day. Along with considering the content of literary works, you will examine the cultural, historical, and political context of the literature, as well as how these issues of gender, race, and class affect the production and meaning of these works. In this course, you will examine the development of African American literature in 7 units: oral traditions, the literature of slavery, Reconstruction to the New Negro Renaissance movement, Harlem Renaissance, the Civil Rights movement, Black arts, and the contemporary period. This course begins with a unit that studies African American literature's inception through oral tradition. This unit will teach you about the beginnings of narrative and will ground your understanding in the development of the literary tradition. We will also identify the principal authors and characteristics of each of these periods and read representative texts. So let me give you a brief overview of each module and the goals that we will have for each. Our Module 1 is oral traditions. African American culture has always drawn on its historical roots in oral tradition for artistic inspiration. Music, both sacred and secular, has lent its rhythms equally to poetry, sermons, and fiction. Oral folk tales and spirituals have migration themes often referring to heaven, Africa, and the North. Spirituals often have their themes presented through biblical characters who persevered and were delivered assurances that they were being watched over by a guardian. One example of the allusion to the Bible is with the story of Exodus. In this unit, we will also examine the influence of spirituals and the blues, address the use of the vernacular, and explore signifying and its origin in the folktales and storytelling on the plantation. Module 2, Literature of Slavery. The literature of slavery is the literature of freedom as well. Slave narratives were produced by former slaves and were instrumental in documenting life on the plantation for slaves and for abolitionists to further their cause. This module will explore the writings of slaves, Wheatley, as well as slave narratives of those who escaped their captivity, Frederick Douglass. In this module, you will study the characteristics of slave narratives and trace how those narratives influenced the genre of slave novels. Module 3, the Reconstruction to the New Negro Renaissance movement. The years after the Civil War, extending to the first decade of the 20th century, were a period when the imperative of racial uplift sometimes conflicted with the artist's desire to develop as an individual. The 1867 Reconstruction Act struck down many of the restrictions on the lives of African Americans, but the withdrawal of troops from the South in 1877 led the way for oppressive laws and practices to develop. These issues had an impact on African American artists as they addressed the Negro problem, overturning the stereotypes of the plantation myth, Charles Chestnut, preparing to be American citizens, Booker T. Washington, instituting change through political agitation, W.E.B. Du Bois, and addressing issues of color, James Weldon Johnson, and integrating the philosophy of racial uplift, Anna Julia Cooper. The Harlem Renaissance is the next module. James Weldon Johnson encouraged African Americans to create their own distinctive literature. The authors of the Harlem Renaissance, a term used to describe a period of great artistic development, followed Johnson's lead. This module will explore how African Americans of the early 20th century celebrated their ethnic identity in a time of modernism, northern migration, and racial oppression. The next module is the Civil Rights era. After World War II, African Americans who served their country came home to a world that still did not accept them as equal. The authors of this period struggled to make a place for themselves as Americans, seeking equality in all areas of life, yet not lose their cultural identity. Although African American drama begins with William Wells Brown's The Escape, or A Leap for Freedom, written in 1857, it came into its own in the latter half of the 20th century with Lorraine Hansberry, Amiri Baraka, and August Wilson, with its focus on issues of sexism, racism, and classism. This module explores both political and personal movements in drama, poetry, and fiction as issues of race, sex, and class converge on the highly charged political arenas that would determine the fate of African Americans. Module 6 is the Black Arts. Artists of the Black Arts movement, even while they criticized the aesthetic claims of the movement as a whole, were moved by continuing injustices to be politically active in their art. Considering all aspects of post-Civil War era life, they wrote scathingly of the failings of America to create a just system, some from prisons, some from urban areas, some from within homosexual relationships. This module traces a wide range of artistic and cultural ideas. It will examine the aesthetic that a time fought against itself, with its narrow conception of what topics could and should be addressed by African American writers, and how the African American society should be portrayed in artistic representations. The last module is the contemporary period, and this module is actually not a time period within the class, but a solo project that you will be working on throughout the whole semester. So this module and your project will examine the influence of American postmodernism, as well as musical trends such as hip-hop and the embrace of non-traditional literary genres on contemporary African American authors. We will situate African American fiction in the context of social, political, and cultural issues of the post-civil rights era America. The struggles of communities to overcome drug epidemics, HIV, and continued racism are the focal points of many contemporary African American authors in this module and in your solo projects. The perversive modern culture of violence and its effect on the African American community and the literature it produces will also be examined. So, next, let's talk a little bit about the time commitment necessary for this course. You all realize that you have signed up for an online course, so you have to weigh in the odds of you doing well by looking at what your life situation is like. If you are a full-time student, it's going to be challenging for you to also be a full-time parent, full-time wife or husband, full-time worker. So I want to give you up front the time commitment that you will need to be successful in this class. So this course should take you a total of 128 hours to complete. That roughly rounds out to about 8 hours a week. That's pretty light for an online course. I know that you may not see it that way, but it is, considering that the traditional or standard course, both online and face-to-face, requires anywhere from 8 to 12 hours a week. So 128 total hours to complete, and each module includes a time advisory that lists the amount of time you are expected to spend on each of the units within the modules. These should help you plan your time accordingly. It may be useful to take a look at these time advisories and determine how much time you have over the next few weeks to complete each unit, and then to set goals for yourself. For example, Module 1 should take 5 hours. Perhaps you can sit down with your calendar and decide to complete Unit 1.1, which is a total of 3 hours, on Monday night. Unit 1.2, which is a total of 2.25 hours, on Tuesday night. And Unit 1.3, a total of 3 hours, on Wednesday night. That way, you will plan out when you're going to do your work, and then you can ensure that you will get that work done. So these are just some ways that I want to help you be successful in this class. I will also give you tips throughout the semester as we go to help you keep track of what you need to be doing and to stay on task. So, good luck this semester. Keep in mind that success is neither magical nor mysterious. Success is the natural consequence of consistently applying basic fundamentals. And in this case, the basic fundamentals are staying on top of things, doing your reading, doing your assignments on time. If you can do that, then you will have success in this class. Good luck, and if you need any help, let me know.